What do you do in your first lesson with new private English students? That's a question that many tutors, new and experienced, ask. And if you're one of them, then this is the right video for you. I'm Will from Enchanted ESL, and in this video I'm going to run you through a lesson plan I've designed specifically for your first sessions with a new private individual or a small group. Well, actually there are two lesson plans. One for kids and younger teens and one for older teens and adults. They have some different activities, but at their core they're the same. You can download the written forms for free from my website enchantedesl.com, and the links are in the description. Those written plans contain further links to lots of activities and games that you might use in this first session, so definitely go and get yourself a copy. The plans implement a needs analysis. If you don't know what that is, it's a process by which we find out the strengths, the weaknesses, the preferences, the goals and the interests of our students. I've got a whole video that breaks down the components of a needs analysis, and you can find it up there or in the description below. So if you're not familiar with a needs analysis, I really recommend you go check out that video, because from now on I'm going to assume you know how it works. The lesson plans are for a 1 hour session. They don't need any special resources or materials, just something to write with. So a pen and paper, or one of these dry erase pockets that I love using. I've also created them with the expectation that you adapt them to suit your style of teaching and the needs of your students. While you can follow the plans to the letter, I encourage you to tweak them as you see fit. For example, if your session is 90 minutes, you might want to add an extra activity or factor in more time for each of the stages. The plan consists of 4 stages: greetings and goals or expectations, getting to know each other, a main activity, and a roundup. So let's start at the beginning. The first thing to do is introduce yourself and say a few things about you. Then ask students to share some things about themselves, just simple things at this point. If students seem a little bit shy or unsure, structure the process with name and 2 facts. For example, my name is Fatima and I like playing piano and watching TV. Or, my name is Koichi, I'm an engineer and I live in Tokyo. Then ask them why they're in this class. Adults should already have a good idea. Kids may not be so sure because their parents probably set up the class for them, but in both cases ask them why they think learning English is important. Now we'll change what we do depending on the type of class. So with adults, you're going to ask them what their goals are. Get them to be quite specific. What exactly do they need to achieve? Have they got an exam coming up? Does their boss require them to improve their fluency? Make a note of what they tell you. With kids and younger teenagers, it's probably best to talk to their parents about the goals of the class, and instead use this time to set expectations for behaviour using the perfect pyramid. Setting expectations and boundaries is vital for behaviour management in the long term. To find out more about behaviour management and how to use the perfect pyramid, I've got a video just for that. It's up there or down there in the description. So that's the first page. We've made introductions and ensured everybody is on the same page. In the second stage, we're going to do a very soft level test and get to know our students' interests. This takes the form of a conversation with very specific starter questions, which we can build upon. We'll start out with simple questions. Where are you from? What's your favourite food? What sports do you like? Then, depending on how well students cope, we'll increase the difficulty. For example, when was the last time you went on holiday? Or do you prefer watching TV or reading books? And if they manage those, move on to advanced questions like, what have you done today? Or if you had a free day tomorrow, what would you do? You may never get to these advanced questions. When students start to struggle and can't cope with the questions, just stop there, don't stress them out by pushing them too far. At this point, follow up on the interest they've already told you about and go into more detail. All the while, pay attention to the language they use and how confident they are using it. Note down the strengths and weaknesses to build on in the future. And definitely jot down things they're passionate about so you can design future activities around those things. For kids, this second stage might be quite short, especially if they're low level or very shy. Maybe only just 10 minutes. With those who are more confident, get them talking for longer, maybe 20 or 25 minutes. Don't stress too much about the timings because you can readjust during the next activity. Finding the video useful? Hit the like button to let me know. Thanks. Now we have a good idea about our students' English ability, their interests and their personalities, we move on to the next stage, the main activity. Your choice of activity is going to depend on your students and how the class has gone so far. That's why before the class you should prepare a variety of different options. Let's start with activities for kids. If they're confident at speaking, you can play Say and Draw. This is a super simple game where one student describes a scene and the others listen and draw it as best they can. For classes where speaking is a bit more challenging, but they're capable of writing down short phrases or words, you can play Folding Stories. In this game, students write an answer to a prompt about a story, for example, who, what, where, why, etc. Then they fold over the top of their paper and pass it on to the next student, who writes the answer to the next prompt. By folding it over, they can't see what the student wrote before. So when you open it up at the end, it comes up with a really silly story. A third option is memory chain. You start off with a sentence like, I went to the park and I saw a fox. Then the next player adds, I went to the park and I saw a fox and a woman with a baby. Then the following student says, I went to the park and I saw a fox, a woman with a baby, and a dancing unicorn. And so on and so on. You go as far as you can before you start to forget everything you said before. As for adults, the activity you choose is based on the goals they told you about earlier. If they're students who specifically want conversation, then the activity should be, well, conversation. But don't just let it drift. Focus on something they spoke about earlier and go into a lot of detail. For example, a place they'd like to visit or the complexities of their job. If they want grammar tuition, give them a short written grammar test. Nothing long or serious, but just to see what they're capable of and identify things that you can improve. If it's an exam prep class, look at the exam as a whole and what things you need to focus on to make sure they pass. You may need to go on the internet during the class to get access to those kind of resources. So you get the idea. In this first class, you can't go particularly deep because you don't have the information yet, but you do have to be prepared for a broad range of possibilities. If you're really struggling for ideas, you can play 2 truths and a lie. This game is great for practicing writing and speaking and identifying a few grammar issues. Plus, you also learn some more things about your students. If you're teaching a group, this main activity is the stage when you should be paying attention to social interactions and group dynamics. So that's figuring out who the leaders are, who the quiet ones are, and if there's any conflict. And of course, keep writing down any strengths and weaknesses you notice in their language. In the written lesson plans, which you can download from my website, there are links to all of the activities and resources I just mentioned. Or for more ideas, take a look at enchantedesl.com, where I've got a treasure trove of games and activities. The fourth and final stage of the lesson is the roundup. For adults and older teens, this should be a short summary of the things you've already found out from the needs analysis that you've been doing. Sure, you haven't had time to think it through yet, but there will be some obvious things that you can identify. And it's a good idea to suggest things you're going to do in the next class or in future classes so students can already see how you're going to help them. With kids, I like to play a short game at the end, one that's very simple and gets them up and about so they end the class on a high. Aim for around 5 to 10 minutes with this game. My favourite is Hot Potato because it's super simple and really fun, but you could also try What's Changed or Who Am I? Again, links to rules for all of these games are in the written lesson plans. Alright, so now you've got the lesson plan and all the resources you need. But are you ready to ace it? Just having the plan isn't quite enough. You also need to know how to put it into action. This video here explains how to approach the first class with calm confidence so that your students are excited to learn more. So go check it out. But for now, I've been Will from Enchanted ESL wishing you all the joy and success with your teaching. See ya!